across the nation who've done their very best, including those people who are part of FEMA, to help those people most in need, especially during these dire times. I think we really owe it to the people to be accountable for where the money goes and who we're helping. And I think that's what this is really about. One of the interesting things came across when we were reviewing your budget. Can you tell me what your annual budget is for disaster relief out of FEMA?
In this continuing resolution, we were given just over $20 billion for fiscal year 25.
So it's not $38.2 billion, it's $20 billion, is that what you said?
Out of my overall budget, just over $20 billion is for disaster relief.
Okay, specifically. And according to your September report that you submitted, what percentage of that went towards COVID?
I don't have the report in front of me, sir, but the COVID reimbursements are part of the Disaster Relief Fund reimbursements to communities that had impacts. So I'd have to get back to you on this.
According to your report in September, 40% of your budget went towards COVID relief. I just want to, that's not talked about very much. Now, I'm an ER doc. I got my MBA. I was actually serving on the front lines of the COVID pandemic during the entire pandemic. Can you tell me when the pandemic was no longer a pandemic, according to the President of the United States?
We closed the incident period in May of last year.
Okay. And yet we spent 40% of our budget from this year's budget on COVID relief instead of hurricanes and other things. Is that correct?
Again, I don't have the numbers in front
according
of me.
To your
those
report,
are major disaster declarations that were eligible for reimbursement.
According to your report, I'm going to inform you, can prove me wrong by submitting your papers later on, but according to your report submitted just 2 months ago, we spent 40%. I want that number to sink in. 40% of our budget for disaster relief was spent on COVID, which was done a long time ago. I was there when it started. I was there when it ended. I know what the reaction was to. I know the overspend on it. I know where the waste, fraud, abuse was. It makes me sick to my stomach. It's one of the main reasons I'm here in Congress. And to see a disaster relief spent on something that was behind us, probably paying off a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse, in my opinion, quite frankly. And I'd love to see that reviewed by oversight. Because this is what's wrong with government. They spend 40% of their budget on something that happened 2 years ago, and we have not enough money to deal with what's happening right now. And quite frankly, the whole COVID relief thing, I saw where the money was spent. I saw how haphazardly it was spent. And I saw who it benefited and who it didn't. And I know a lot of millionaires and billionaires that benefited greatly off that money that was spent from the United States government taxpayers. And that's what I'm very upset about. And that's why I'm here today as part of the COVID committee, as a doctor who watched this stuff happen firsthand. And now to see a budget that I think is very dishonest. I think you guys should, I know what happened with somebody who skipped over a Trump house. I get that, and I think it's environmental as far as the way that the prevailing attitude was. I understand you fired somebody, which I'm very happy about. I understand you're looking into other people that might be at odds with what you're supposed to accomplish. But to have a budget that's dedicated almost half of their budget to something that ended a long time ago, can you explain that?
All 50 states received a disaster declaration in the previous administration to support their reimbursements for the costs experienced from
this year?
These are all payments from the disaster declarations declared during the previous administration in 2020.
So you're meaning to tell me that you had to do it?
These were presidentially declared disasters, just like all disasters. And as people,
so you're saying yes, you had to do it. Is that correct?
Yes, as communities.
So you're by law binded to spend 40% of your budget on COVID response.
We are abided by law to reimburse jurisdictions that received a presidential disaster declaration, to reimburse them for the costs as eligible under the law.
So I'm new to Congress, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm new to Congress. I'm not really have the experience that you have. But as an oversight guy who spent a lot of your time getting to the bottom of these egregious errors, and you can fact check me on the other side of the aisle too, but I have a hard time believing that by law we had to spend 40% of a budget on disaster relief for this year based on something that ended a couple years ago.
I agree.
I'm just trying to figure out where that went. And that's why I'm here in Congress. I hope you can work with me, and I hope you can work with me to get to the bottom of why we have those kind of stupid spending laws in America, and we can end those things for good, because that is the biggest part of the problem of government as I see it. Thank you. With that, Mr. Chairman, I rest.